The richest person you know is probably someone you'd never guess. Not the loudest car in the parking lot, not the biggest house on the street. It's the person who drives something sensible, lives in a home smaller than they could afford, and checks their bank balance without their stomach dropping. That calm isn't luck. That calm is the whole point. And by the end, you'll understand why the most boring person you know might be the richest, and why everything you were taught to admire is usually a warning sign. Let's start with the one idea that changes everything once it sinks in. Wealth is invisible. That watch on someone's wrist, the badge on their car, the square footage they post online, that's not wealth. That's money that already left the building. You're looking at spending. You're looking at a receipt, not a bank balance. And the two are opposites. Think about what a car payment really is. Finance a $50,000 car and you hand over around $700 a month for years, while the thing you bought loses value the whole time. Now picture someone who buys a boring, reliable car and invests that same $700 a month instead. In about 6 years, at the market's return, that boring choice grows to nearly $70,000. One drives a symbol, the other builds a foundation. And from the outside, the second person looks like they're doing worse. That gap between how wealth looks and how it works is where everyone gets lost. Here's the uncomfortable part. The loud spender is often the fragile one. 2 missed paychecks from a crisis, holding it together with minimum payments and hope. The quiet one, the person who looks like they might be broke, is often the one sleeping soundly at night. And if you want proof instead of vibes, we have it. The largest study of millionaires ever done followed 10,000 of them. And it destroys almost everything people believe about who gets rich. 79% received no inheritance at all. Not a small one, nothing. The trust fund story we tell ourselves about rich people is, for the vast majority, simply false. It gets more surprising. 1 in 3 of these millionaires never earned 6 figures in a single year of their entire working life. Let that land. 1/3 of them never had what most people would call a big salary ever, and they still crossed $1 million. The careers that produce the most millionaires: engineer, accountant, teacher. Only 15% ever held a senior leadership title. This wasn't a club of CEOs. It was a quiet army of ordinary earners doing unremarkable things for a very long time. So what were they doing? Nothing that would ever go viral. They spent less than they made, invested steadily, and avoided debt like it was contagious. More than 9 in 10 said they simply worked hard and stayed consistent. No brilliant move, no perfect stock pick. And that's the part that makes it boring. The boredom is exactly why it works. The strategy is available to almost anyone. It just refuses to entertain you along the way. The engine underneath all this is compounding. The most patient force in money and painfully dull to watch. The American stock market has returned around 10% a year on average for a century. Your money roughly doubles every 7 years. The early doubles feel pointless. The later ones are enormous. The exciting investor jumps in and out and interrupts the doubling right when it starts to matter. The boring investor buys a simple index fund and does the hardest thing in finance. They leave it alone. Here's how quietly that turns into a fortune. Put $500 a month into a plain index fund at the market's average return, and after 30 years, you have more than $1 million. You did nothing clever. You just fed the machine and refused to touch it. And here's the line that should make every younger person lean in. If you start that same $500 a month at 25 instead of 35, you don't end up with a little more. You end up with about 3 times as much. 10 years of doing nothing exciting early can be worth over $1 million. Time is the ingredient, and time only rewards the people calm enough to wait. Now look at the single most revealing number in American finance. Vanguard tracks nearly 5 million workers. The average 401k balance is about $168,000. Sounds encouraging until you see the median, the person standing exactly in the middle. The median is only about 44,000. The average is nearly 4 times the median. That's not a rounding quirk. A small group of quiet, consistent savers built balances so large they drag the average up, while most of the country sits down near 44,000. If this is reshaping how you think about money, subscribe and stick around, because the next pattern quietly wrecks more high earners than any recession ever has, and it catches even smart people completely off guard. That pattern has a boring name and a brutal effect. It's called lifestyle creep. You get a raise, and within a month or two, your spending rises to swallow it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, slightly more expensive everything. The raise vanishes, and your savings rate never moves. You could double your income over a decade and be exactly as fragile at the end as you were at the start, just with fancier problems. That's why so many people earning very comfortable salaries still live paycheck to paycheck. The people who quietly get wealthy do something that feels strange in a culture built on more. They define enough. They decide on purpose what a good life actually costs, and then they let their income climb past that line without letting their spending follow. When a raise comes, the difference goes straight into investing, not into an upgrade. It looks like they're leaving joy on the table. What they're really buying is freedom, and freedom doesn't photograph well. That's why you never see it. Picture 2 people. Marcus earns $200,000 a year and looks the part completely. The car, the watch, the vacations, the address. Everyone assumes he's wealthy. But his spending rose to match every raise he ever got, so he saves almost nothing. If his income stopped, his whole life would collapse in about 2 months. Now picture Diane, a retired teacher who never once cracked 6 figures. She drove modest cars, stayed in the same small home for decades, and quietly invested a piece of every paycheck for 35 years. She's a millionaire. Marcus looks rich and is fragile. Diane looks ordinary and is free. Only one of them ever has to worry, and it's not the one you'd guess. Look at one of the richest people alive. Warren Buffett is worth over $100 billion, and he still lives in the same Omaha house he bought in 1958 for $31,000. He drives himself around. For years, he used an old flip phone. His own line is that past a certain point, your possessions start to possess you. The wealthiest investor of his era chose the boring house, the boring car, the boring routine. That choice isn't a quirk. It's the philosophy that built the fortune. Real wealth isn't the number you show other people. It's the number of mornings you wake up without dread. It's the ability to absorb a surprise bill, a job loss, a bad year, without your life falling apart. The people who look rich are often just spending their future to decorate their present. The people who are rich usually look like they're getting away with something ordinary. Choose to be the second kind. Let your life look a little boring on the surface while the real wealth builds quietly underneath. Give it enough time, and one day you'll be the calm person someone else looks at and never suspects. If this changed how you see money, subscribe. Plain English, real numbers, no magic. See you in the next one.